PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
So it turns out that frogs, like I mentioned before, are incredibly diverse. So over 7,000 species. And many of them are nocturnal, so they live, they only come out at night. But there are some that come out during the daytime, and many of the ones that come out in the daytime have really, really bright colors. And the blue frogs, or the poison dart frogs, is one type of blue. There are many blue frogs, actually, but one type is called the poison dart frog. And the reason they're called that is because the native people in the Amazon in South America used to capture these frogs and take little darts and roll them on the skin of the frog, and they'd use that to shoot monkeys out of the trees. And it's because these frogs are incredibly toxic. They have neurotoxins on their skin. So they wear their armor basically on the outside of their skin. That's one of the things that makes frogs or amphibians different from other vertebrates, is that they have special glands that produce defensive compounds, mostly toxins, that if something tries to bite them, they get the toxin in their mouth, and then what happens to that predator is that their muscles stop working. So they can't bite, and they stop breathing. So some of them are really, really dangerous, actually. And most of the ones that are dangerous are out in the daytime. So they're flaunting their colors. They have very bright either reds or blues or oranges, and they're basically showing off their poisonousness, in a sense. Is that a word?
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
It is very important to make statistics or to take statistics seriously in order to be able to come to meaningful conclusions. For me, it is even more important to take statistics seriously because I am interested in understanding the effects of globalization and understanding the effects of international trade. So I, as a researcher and economist, am especially interested in the question, what does international trade bring to people around the world? And does international trade benefit people around the world? Especially, does international trade benefit poor people in developing countries? If you ask an economist this question, he would most likely tell you, there must be some benefits to international trade, to a country as a whole. But he would also tell you that some people are going to gain more, others gain less, and others even lose from it. Basic economic theories predict that especially those people are going to gain from globalization who own something which is more precious globally than it is locally. So in a high-income country, these are going to be capitalists, high-skilled workers, who are going to be the main beneficiaries from trade. In a low-income country, these are going to be low-skilled workers, who are locally plenty, but globally relatively scarcer. This simple economic argument lies at the bottom of the expectation by many economists that the poor should actually benefit from international trade around the world. But whether this really happens and whether this really occurs, it is an empirical question.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update. The Western diet present in today's world is a consequence of the Neolithic Revolution and Industrial Revolutions. The Neolithic Revolution introduced the staple foods of the Western diet, including domesticated meats, sugar, alcohol, salt, cereal grains, and dairy products. The modern Western diet emerged after the Industrial Revolution, which introduced new methods of food processing, including the addition of cereals, refined sugars, and refined vegetable oils to the Western diet, and also increased the fat content of domesticated meats. More recently, food processors began replacing sugar with high-fructose corn syrup. PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
Plant stem cells actually matter, and the final product of these actually matters a lot. And so this became a little bit famous or infamous about 10 years ago, where it was argued that stomata are the most influential cell type on the planet. And you might argue that human brain cells are a fairly influential cell type, but we can't live without these, and plants can probably live without our brain cells. So this is probably one of the most influential cells on the planet because of its function, because of this function in taking in carbon dioxide and releasing water vapor. And so this was not to be outdone 10 years ago. Now it is not only arguably the most influential cell on the planet, but at the center of a crisis in water availability and crop production that we expect to see over the next few decades. All right, so just a reminder of why we care about these. So this is that portal from which carbon dioxide enters from the atmosphere into the plant. It gets fixed into sugars. We eat that. Water vapor and oxygen come out. So plants absolutely are dependent on this. It helps them get the carbon dioxide. It also helps them bring water. So plants don't have a vascular system. They can't pump things around. They actually have to evapotranspirate. So water is in the soil, comes up through the plant, and by evaporating at the top, that brings the water up. It also helps to keep the plant cool.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
When you hear the word globalization, what are the images that come to your mind? Do you think of huge container ships going around the world and shipping tons and tons of goods? Do you think of financial centers operating around the clock? Or do you think, as I do, of shiny shopping malls in Southeast Asia, well stocked on Western brands, the products for which have been produced somewhere nearby? Or does the word rather remind you of mass protests? Does it make you feel concerned about environmental damages, or concerned about shocking working conditions in sweatshops producing for the world market? All of us have very different pictures in our mind. Some of them rather neutral or even optimistic. Others more likely negatively charged.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
2 years ago, I had a very, very interesting opportunity with BBC. They asked me to take 18 months off of my life and asked me to do a television show all around the globe. And basically what I did was I help entrepreneurs and companies in 13 different countries turn around their business in 18 months, and they filmed the whole thing and created a show called War on Business. So I was the host. I walked in, helped the entrepreneur, not at a high level, but really at a deep level. I learned so much by doing this show because I spent 4 months in Mumbai. I was able to spend time in Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, Melbourne, all over the globe for 18 months on the road. And I learned that the world is definitely getting smaller. Whenever you go to these countries, they all speak English. Majority countries now speak English. So the world becomes smaller. One email, one click away, I could communicate with somebody.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
Just a few years ago, the term milk was synonymous with the stuff that came from cows. But now, the dairy market is awash in plant-based alternatives, made from soy, rice, almonds, coconut and hemp, driven largely by consumers' hunger for low-calorie, low-sugar, lactose-free companions for their morning cereal and coffee. Milk alternatives control just 8% of overall milk sales in the United States, but for the past few years, they've represented the fastest-growing part of the dairy market. Sales of milk alternatives rose to nearly $2 billion in 2013, up 30% since 2011, driven in large part by the popularity of almond milk. In that same time period, non-dairy milk's growth is expected to continue outpacing dairy milk's, at least through 2018. Plant-based alternatives can be a saving grace for anyone with food allergies or lactose intolerance, or those who follow vegan diets.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
More people are recognizing its value as a food source.
PTE Help Listening Mini Mock Test 2. Subscribe to PTE Help for every latest update.
Ostrich farming is still in its early days outside Africa,